What's the worst mistake you've made at work? Was showing a customer how to run his round baler, farm equipment, and ended up having the 1,000-pound round bale roll downhill, through a fence, and into a manned swimming pool. Back in the mid-2000s I was working at a small financial firm. One day, I accidentally clicked the sort by column in an Excel spreadsheet with every client's. We probably had 500 clients' accounts, address and information. Well, unbeknownst to young little me, I was 18. Far younger than any other person in the office. That shuffled every single address, so none matched up with the clients' names. That weekend several pieces of mail were sent to each address, and come Monday, well, crap. None of the mail was sent to the right address. Clients were P. Co-workers were P. Management was P. Overall, the mistake cost about $15,000. No one ever found out it was me, as I was young and not high up in the company and nearly every single person had looked over that spreadsheet at one point in time. Yeah, I felt awful about it. No, I never said anything. They spent weeks trying to figure out what had happened, and honestly I didn't realize my mistake until after the whole mess transpired. You didn't frick up. A sysadmin fricked up by allowing a business critical spreadsheet to be writable by you. I tried to throw a spool of Cat5 cable onto a scaffold, missed, and destroyed a rack of 8 Mercedes-Benz windshields. I feel your pain deeply. First time using the phones at work, I accidentally hung up on a girl who wanted to compliment how well the customer service was when she shopped there. I felt horrible. I'll show you some customer service. B-click. Scratched the wing of an F-15 by accident. They had to change the entire wing because of it. Who knows how many millions of dollars it costed. I worked for a catering company when I was 16. While working a pretty fancy wedding, I was tasked with pouring champagne at the bride and groom's table. I had never even opened a champagne bottle, so I obviously hadn't poured any either. I managed to spill champagne all over the bride, immediately after blasting her in the face with the cork. You just won the thread. Not as much monetary damage as other stories, but oh man, you fricked that one up. I was doing some vacuum leak testing in a $40,000 acrylic vacuum chamber that was filled with water dyed with methylene blue. We were using a 45-pound weight to hold the samples down. The weight slipped off the sample and crashed into the bottom of the tank, cracking the bottom plate of the tank and spewing all of its 30 gallons of blue water all over the freshly painted white floor in the lab. In my defense, my boss instructed me to use the weight even though I told him it wouldn't work. He was understanding. Told me to spread the water all over the floor to dye the whole thing, and slap some silicone cork onto the crack. I did both and continued to test once the cork had dried. Believe it or not, the cork held. I convinced him to let me buy a clamp to hold the samples down for the rest of the testing. Haha. And look at the bright side. Now you have a lovely blue floor. I saw a co-worker drop and destroy a $585,000 computer for the B-1B during production. Mentioned to the pilot that his red light on the wing was out. Grounded the plane on Thanksgiving night for 12 plus hours. Worst part was the pilot announced to the 150 plus people on the plane that it was my fault that we weren't able to leave. I was 18 at the time, and scared as heck working the check-in counter for the next 12 hours with a mob of angry passengers. All they were missing were pitchforks and torches. Thanksgiving and bam. What 2007. Best one ever. Frick that pilot. I ordered a new lens for our microscope. It cost about $10,000 and that was a deal. The other places had this lens for about $5K more. Boss was quite happy I managed to save so much money. It ended up not being a phase contrast lens, so we couldn't view cells. Many LOL were had, especially when it was non-returnable. I traveled to Brazil to do volunteer work and met a beautiful girl. I spoke almost no Portuguese, but we got by and I ended up staying at her house for a week while I had a week in transit traveling between places. Her family was so nice to me. They made me dinner lunch every day and I didn't pay a cent. It was the best week, until the girl and I wanted to watch a movie, but I was told that my feet were too dirty to lie on her bed. I was out playing with her dog, and I had to wash them. I jumped over her to go to the bathroom, but slipped on the way. I landed on her and badly dislocated her knee. She was screaming in agony and was in a lot of pain. I ran for her mother and called her in broken Portugals to come help. Her mother, father, 2 brothers and even the dog, who I had to hold back, were in the room, and I had to explain to them in broken Portuguese why their daughter sister was crying in agony and how her knee is dislocated. I was told that it was the worst pain she had ever felt in her life. Worst part about it, she was going on a fancy cruise in 2 weeks time and had to spend the whole thing on crutches, i.e. no stilettos, no dancing, nada, for the curious. We are still together 3 years later and her family, and of course my girlfriend, love telling the story. When my girlfriend was waiting for the doctor, my girlfriend's mother said she was more worried for me. She thought I was going to pass out because I went so pale. I will take the embarrassment to my grave. That didn't end the way I thought it would. Good work, buddy. Cut off the tip of my thumb while cutting garlic. Had to throw away the garlic. I'm a robotic engineer. I was working a job at a sausage packing factory. I set the payload parameters too low. To make a long story short, everyone went home that day having been sausage slapped by a robot. Another nurse, not me, gave an iron injection to a woman who happened to be in the adult entertainment industry using the incorrect technique, which resulted in a horrible giant stain on the skin of her ass. Fell through the ceiling of a multi-million-dollar home. The house had been under construction for over 2 years and was set to be 100% complete the next day. If you fell through a ceiling on a house, I don't think it was fit to be 100% complete. I used to work for a veterinarian and one of our tasks was to euthanize sick animals just like any other vet's office. The veterinarian usually left this task up to the other technicians and myself, until one day we put the wrong dog to sleep. I still feel awful about it to this day. Both dogs were sick and both were poodles, and I was instructed to go get the sick poodle ready for euthanasia. I was flirting with a co-worker after we had closed. She said something about not being afraid of anything, so, being the wise ass that I am, I stretched a rubber band and pointed it at her face from a foot away. I just stared at her. She smiled and said, "You don't have the balls." So, naturally, I let go of the rubber band, but I tried to do it in the way where it shoots backwards, just to fake her out. Well, as you could guess with the context of this thread, it ended up going the other direction, the in her face direction. Smacks her in the face right under her eye. It welted up almost instantly and her eye get red and tit up. Instead of apologizing like every ounce of my body was screaming for me to do, I just said, "I don't have the what now?" She just started laughing and then I explained I didn't mean to hit her, and we still went out on our date. Dated for several months after. Accidentally turned off 911 service for the entire city of San Diego once. It was only for about 30 seconds, but made me feel bad. I was a grooms engineer for MCI WorldCom back in the late 90s. My job was to decide which backbone internet pipes, DS3S, OC48s, OC192s, etc., to route traffic through, and sometimes change them. I made a mistake. I caught it right away, but on something that big it takes a few seconds for everything to propagate. This means that instructions to the backbone internet router's switches take commands, kind of like dropping a pebble in a pond. A wave of info rolls out. Even if you make another change in the middle, you have to wait for it to propagate out. In this case it was some BGPSS7 commands. That's it. Tried to stack 1-ton containers of pork rind and other meat byproducts for high. Failed. Spent the rest of the day picking up 3 tons of said byproducts. Failed to include the line supplied without cord. Must be installed by an electrician in the product sheet and manual of a 400V 10 kilowatts bakery oven. Customers were not amused. Mistranslated caution. Wet floor is Acton. Nassenboden, a German native speaker, erupted in laughter when he saw the 5,000 signs when they were delivered. Spent too much time on Reddit, causing a production delay for a seasonal product, missing the season. The drummer for Rise Against came into the bank I worked at to exchange a few grand worth of Canadian money back to USD as they just finished playing out there on tour. I was starstruck and nervous as heck. Ended up not paying attention to my screen and gave him about $300 too much. A couple months later we had to go into his account and take the extra money back out. My service manager just thought it was funny because she knew how nervous I got around him. I cleaned movie theaters and a few of the workers were screwing around having a war throughout the day, so we planned to drop a bucket of popcorn on one of our co-workers when he walked in to clean. I readied myself above the stairs to drop the bucket. When my friend at the bottom gave me the signal, I dropped the bucket. It was a perfect hit, except it hit my manager. A perfect headshot. Luckily the manager I hit just laughed and threw the bucket back at me. I mistakenly applied a sick leave when I'm really fit to report for work. You so gangster, man. I am a chef. One time a few years back, this young kid on the line left his knife in an awkward position and went for a smoke break. My dumbass grabbed the knife from the blade end and nearly sliced my fingers off. I started bleeding profusely all over the cutting board and salad station. A busboy drove me to the nearest hospital where I had to take a drug test and receive 9 stitches. The owners of the restaurant paid for everything and I got a month off of work paid. It was probably one of the dumbest things I had ever done. I needed the break though. I get about 3 people threatening me with lawsuits each week, but that's how I know I'm doing my job well. Man, I hate my job. I worked at a nice restaurant in high school, and I was stupid. We had a large private party, and we needed champagne glasses at the bar in the front of the restaurant. They were all in the back. I had a great idea. I just put them all on a tray and walked them through the crowd to the front. Champagne glasses, being tall and thin, and not very stable, and hard to balance, let alone when you are trying to put about 100 on a very large tray. But it was fun putting them all on the tray. Then I try to pick it up and immediately spill all of them on the floor. Fortunately I was still in the kitchen, but I destroyed so many glasses. Yeah, that's the end of the story. I broke 2 Rolex watches in one shot. Accidentally took down my company's corporate network one day. I used to work on a nuclear missile carrying submarine. During missile ops, a missile was pulled up and out of a tube. Well, we have procedures for a reason. The procedure wasn't followed exactly like it was supposed to when the missile hit a ladder left in the tube. Big freaking deal. Like the president gets a phone call from someone within a half-hour. Big deal. My job is not involved with the missiles, but I was there and holy tea, I have never seen so many high-ranking people so pee-off scared. I used to work in a factory that used liquid aluminum to make car parts. My crap job was skimming the impurities off of the top of the tanks that held the aluminum. Accidentally knocked a fiberglass cover into a tank of boiling aluminum. Had to shut down an entire factory with hundreds of workers because of the acrid smoke. I work as a system admin on a payroll application, PeopleSoft. I had been running queries in the database most of the morning when someone requested some data be dumped from one of our test environments. I got the script, pre-written, and ran it, but forgot to log out of the production database and into the test database. We had to restore from the previous night's backup and manually reapply all the logs. Took us about 10 hours to get back where we were before I screwed up. From that day on, I always back up the tables before any mod, which is a good practice anyway, regardless of the environment. One of my all-time greatest moments while working at a call center for large telco. We worked the shift that closed the queue for the state. Customer called in to disconnect a home phone line. I transposed the number and disconnected the main line for a 250 line apartment complex. With the main number disconnected, all the lines under it went out of service and were removed from the database. As it was the last call of the day, no one was there to pick up to fix it. By the time the queue opened in the morning, the automated line assignment system had started assigning dozens of numbers from the complex to new customers who were waiting for service. Took about 2 days with 3 people working all day to clean up. Many credits were issued for many dollars when that was done. You have been visited by the pizza of sleepiness. Good dreams and rest will come to you, but only if you comment sleep tight. Pizza. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.